Hey, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today I want to talk to you about, with limited ammo, where should you be spending your time when you do get a chance to practice? So there's a lot of thoughts about what are important skills to develop with a handgun for self-defense. Really, I focus on things that are going to be applicable for the most likely encounter that I can expect. So that means that I'm going to break my skill sets into a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. And what I mean by that is I have limited time, limited talent, limited treasure to invest in all my practice sessions. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and itemize all of these skill sets into primary, secondary, and tertiary so that I can spend the appropriate amount of time on the skills that are most likely going to be needed in a deadly force encounter. Then once I have worked those skills to the point where they have become, I would go so far as to say mastered, now I can start spending time in the secondary and the tertiary. Now, it's probably not realistic to expect to become a master of those skills, so better would be at least proficient. So before you move off to the secondary and tertiary skills, you want to be proficient. And when you have achieved proficiency at all three of those skill set levels, now you can interchange your range sessions, your practice sessions, to include what you feel like you need to be working on because you have recognized that as maybe a deficiency, maybe you haven't put enough time, maybe it's been a while since you've worked on it. So primary, secondary, and tertiary, that's kind of how I look at things. And again, most of this is built around just a kind of like a psychomotor skill set understanding. I need to be able to develop this skill at the highest level possible. Now, what does that really mean? So that means that I want that skill to be executed flawlessly. That's the goal. I may not get flawless, but I'm working towards that. So think of it in another way to think about this is progress, not perfection, right? Because what happens is if I really am trying to reach that perfect skill level, whether it be time and accuracy dependent, that means that I might be expending too much time at that skill set. Even if it's a primary skill set, I might be expending too much time there. So you're gonna have to meter your involvement in all of these skills to figure out what you want as the outcome. So do I want this outcome to be perfect or do I want this outcome to be proficient? So use your judgment there. The next thing that you'll have to do is you'll have to establish some standards to help you determine whether or not you have reached your goal. Have I sufficiently trained a primary skill set so that it has become proficient? How do I know? Well, it's become proficient because I can repeat this performance on command to a set known measurable, observable standard. Great, awesome. Now I can start concentrating on other skill sets in that primary level, or I can move to the secondary and tertiary. All right, so what are the skills that you might want to block in your primary? Well, if you were to think about most deadly force encounters, the first thing I would tell you is that you're going to always want to be heavy on accuracy. Heavy on accuracy and not so much concerned about time. I'm not saying time is not important, but what we have found is when you start off out of the gate focused on time as your exclusive meter for judging your performance, what ends up happening is that you really take a lot, you bypass a lot of the skill development that is absolutely critical. Because what will happen is that if you focus more on accuracy first, speed is a natural byproduct of good technique, all right? But if you try to focus on speed first, you might find that your accuracy is, best way to put it, luck-based, not skill-based. So accuracy first. So when it comes to that, there are basically 5 skills in that primary category that you really want to be able to work. You want to be able to deliver effective fire from a ready position. That's number 1. And then from the holster. That's number 2. You want to be able to deliver accurate shots at up to 7 yards that are at a reduced target, so that could be simulating a headshot. And then you want to be able to deliver multiple rounds to the larger target zone, which could be the torso. So that's 4. The 5th skill is kind of like tied to the 3rd and the 4th, which is the splits in between them. And that's something that we don't often talk a lot about. What I really try to emphasize to the students is to maintain about a half-second split between all your shots. And the reason for that is, could you go faster? Well, yeah, of course, you can have faster times from the ready, faster times from the holster. But we have to draw the line at where do I want to be at a minimum. Half-second split is going to allow you a couple things that we don't often think about, which is time to evaluate the effectiveness of the rounds that you're firing. Are they hitting? Are they missing? Is the target complying? Is the target becoming no longer a justifiable shoot threat? So that half-second split time is a little bit more valuable than you might think, and not just from the shooting perspective. It's from the cognitive ability to process the information that you're seeing at the time. So that's your goal right there, right? So shots from the ready, shots from the holster, reduce hits, so that's a headshot, and then multiple hits to the body, torso shots, and then the splits being around that half second. All right, so that's the 5 skills that you probably want to spend the most amount of time in the primary kind of level. Now, each of those can be somewhat different. From the ready position, I may have to initiate a challenge before I engage the target. From the holster, I may need to initiate a challenge. From the holster, I might have to come from concealed. The headshot might be standalone, or the headshot might be attached to the torso shot, so in other words, a failure drill. And then everything tied to that half-second split. All right, so that's primary. What are some skills that I might need to work from a secondary point of view? There are 3. And the 3 that I really try to emphasize are, 2 of them are going to be gun handling related. So a reload. Reloads in a critical incident are not as common as you might think. However, we still want to be able to perform one should the need arise. The other thing you need to consider is the type of handgun that you're using. If you're using a handgun with a pretty decent magazine capacity, say 10 rounds or more, the likelihood of you having to do a reload is pretty low, even if you're looking at multiple threats. The second skill set that we want to be able to do, tied to that is going to be your malfunction clearance. So you want to be able to perform any type of malfunction clearance that you may be called upon to do. Now, a lot of times, if you're choosing a reliable handgun that's properly maintained and you reduce operator errors, it's very chances of having a malfunction are very low. And really what you're looking at that point is relegated to some sort of ammo-related malfunction. All right, can't do anything about that. The second skill set that you want to work in the secondary level is going to be shooting strong hand only. Really working at being able to not just shoot strong hand only, but potentially draw one hand only, draw to a ready one hand only. And there's a lot of reasons why you might need to do this. Obviously, you could be injured, but there might be some other things to consider, such as you're managing another person, for instance, a child, a baby that you're holding. Maybe you have other people that you're marshaling and working. The bottom line is that you might need to have that other hand free to do some other type of work relative to the situation that you're in. The third skill inside of the secondary is going to be managing multiple threats. So managing multiple threats is one of these things where it doesn't get twice as hard when 2 targets are in the problem. It's exponentially more challenging. So you're going to want to practice at using various types of multiple threat techniques. Now, those are the 3 techniques that you would probably want to develop in the secondary skill set. The tertiary skill set is where we see a couple of the less thought about skills. I've mentioned them before, but challenging a threat from the ready, challenging a threat from the holster. So you're going to have to develop some sort of tape loop that you can, at the blink of an eye, be able to recite without thought process. So that's going to be part of your tertiary skill set development. The next is going to be pushing back at distance. So let's extend the distance outside of the normal ranges. So 7 to 10 is probably where you want to spend the majority of your time on the primary and secondary tasks. Inside of the tertiary, I want to start thinking about 15, 25, and beyond. Now, the chances of you ever having to shoot at those extended ranges are pretty low. But what we want is we want to have the skill to allow us to do that, because that's going to help us at all the other skill levels that we're trying to improve. The third skill is going to be low light work. Low light work is one of these skills that most of the time people think about a weapon mounted light. Yes, you're going to want to practice with a weapon mounted light if that's the direction that you choose to go. However, you still need to work with a handheld, because it's most likely going to be the tool that you're going to use in a deadly force encounter. And even if you had a weapon mounted light, that handheld tool is something that you can easily use in other situations outside of a deadly force encounter. So these are the 3 skill levels, and these are the skills that I recommend that you practice and develop inside of these skill levels when you are trying to look at how to allocate your time, talent, and treasure towards skill development. Okay, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them down below. Until then, take care and stay safe.